It's the Gordon Carbine. Used by Gary Gordon in the Battle of Mogadishu and later brought to the big screen in Black Hawk Down, it's a rifle that has become iconic. It's a part of American warfighting history.
Okay, so to appreciate this gun and understand it, I think we have to go back to 1993 and we have to look at the Battle of Mogadishu and what brought the gun into light.
Yeah.
I will be the first to tell you that this has been a heavy video to do.
Emotionally.
Yeah, no, it is, but we're gonna try to, give you guys a little bit of the story. I know most of you guys know it, but for those of you that don't, that are maybe newer to looking at this kind of stuff, Gary Gordon goes into the Army at age 18. 1986 rolls around and he volunteers and gets selected for
Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta.
Right, which is the most elite of elite fighting units on planet Earth.
Yep. Also known as the unit, Delta Force, CAG.
Yep.
All those names are interchangeable. The name in the military, Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta. Okay.
Yep. So 1993 rolls around. Mogadishu happens October 3rd, 1993. At that point, Gary is a senior member in CAG and a sniper on top of that. And so the Operation Gothic Serpent, which was the name of the operation to go in and capture an advisor to Adid, winds up going south. Super 6-1, one of the Black Hawks, gets shot out of the sky.
Yep.
And at that point, all of the Rangers and a lot of the CAG guys and everything start going to assist with Super 6-1.
Yeah.
Super 6-4 later gets hit with an RPG, takes out the tail rotor. Bird starts to spin, eventually crashes. It's got 4 guys on board. Mike Durant is the pilot. I don't know the name of the other 3 passengers. No disrespect meant by that. But they go down. Mike gets his MP5, which is the only real thing that he had handy. His back's broken at that point.
Yeah.
His femur, I believe, was shattered. I mean, he's in severely bad shape.
Very beat up, yeah.
So he's got his MP5, but then you've got providing overwatch in another bird we've got Gary Gordon, we've got Randy Shughart, who are both Delta snipers.
Yep.
They request to be dropped in. Their request gets denied. On their 3rd request, it gets approved. And the key word there, request.
Yep.
Request, right? And, I've debated this with multiple guys with connections who are not in the fight, but with, connections and stuff around that time period. And the thing that I've come back to multiple times is the mentality of that, to go, we are requesting to be dropped in, because I've gone back and forth on, you have to know how that ends.
Yeah.
And then there's a part of me that I'm like, they're so highly trained and such human studs.
Yeah.
They're like, we got it.
Yeah.
Like, we got it. Send us in.
Which, talking to a friend of ours, talking about that mentality, he gets into, he's like, one thing that's hard for civilians especially to understand, but even anyone in the military, is those guys are so confident in their abilities and trained to such a level that, I mean, they probably thought to an extent, or not thought, I'm sorry, poor choice of word, believed it was no big deal, another day at the office.
Yeah.
Which is, when you think of that,
It's insane.
the absolute chaos that's going on, your requests get denied, and 3rd time go, like, I think any logical human being understands, like, well, this only ends one way,
Yeah.
right?
So they get dropped in. They make their way to the crash site. They start, working around the Black Hawk. At this point, a Somali mob has formed, right? And all the crew is taking incoming fire and everything. They obviously start returning fire. They get Mike Durant backed up against a wall. At that point, I mean, it has been, I'll shoot you straight, fascinating to make this, because I've reached out to multiple people with direct ties to this.
Yeah.
And no one, there's so much in the way of kind of unknowns that it's actually become, I've appreciated the fact that these guys just don't talk.
I love it.
They don't talk, and I've come to appreciate it. At first I was like,
Yeah.
I want to hear a personal perspective of this, and eventually I was like, you know what? I like that you guys don't, you don't, you're the quiet professionals,
Yeah.
right? So what we know, largely we know from Mike Durant, who was there. According to Mike, Gary goes down first. At that point, Randy actually brings Mike Durant, not this actual, but Gary's, proper gun with a few rounds left.
Yep.
That is the last time that Mike Durant sees Randy. Last thing that Randy said to him is good luck. Goes out, does his job. Mike runs out of rounds. Gun goes dry. Gun goes in his lap. At that point, even according to Mike, he goes, I had my sidearm on me, never
Yeah.
even occurred to me to grab it.
Yeah.
Right? Which is, just fascinating. I
Yeah.
don't know, it's just a fascinating nuanced point. But eventually, Somali mob sees Mike, they come up. According to him, it's very fascinating. He just says, look, his SEER training kicked in,
Yeah.
and instead of fight mode, survive mode.
Survive. Yeah.
Gets the shit kicked out of him, gets captured. I believe it was 11 days later that they finally got him out. And, unfortunately, Gary and Randy's guns never recovered. So the reality is we don't know all the details of this. We know a very limited amount from rough photos that we have and, what some people have said, but we don't know all the details. We know that Gary was 33 when he went down. He and Randy both later awarded the Medal of Honor,
Yep.
right? Highest military award that you can get. And it's just an incredible story,
Yeah.
And
to just reverse a little bit, this was 93, so there really, as we both did research on this, there really isn't a lot out there.
no.
I would wager to bet that there's more on other operations from other special operations units more recently than Gothic Serpent.
Yeah.
And again, it's just a testament to those guys being quiet professionals, and
It's incredible.
I think that it also, a compliment to that unit is that there still is not a lot out there. And that those men and the men inside that unit and that unit itself is like, we do a job and no one really needs to know about it.
And with that background, we just want to give you guys a little bit of background, because sometimes we get into iconic cool gun mode and you forget, like, there's significance to that thing, right? So we'll take you through the gun now, but we just wanted to give you a little bit of context here. Okay, so let's actually break down a little bit about the gun here.
Yeah.
So Type A, we've had a couple videos on the channel with Type A. I consider them friends at this point. So
They better be.
Yeah, well, yeah, they should be, you know. But and we are. But we're gonna break down the gun. It's from them. The first thing, the reason I'm saying that is, look, this is not 100% clone correct.
Yeah.
It is a really good clone. The reason I'm saying it's not correct is because, hey, it's on a Type A lower, not a Colt lower. It has their barrel, right? So it's going to have some things. While, yes, very period correct and like pretty dialed in, you could find little nitpicky things. So we're going to concede that going in.
Yeah.
Yes, there wasn't an Aimpoint Pro on a 1993 gun. But we know that at that time, early 90s in that unit,
Wild West.
Wild West.
Yeah.
Right?
As far as guns and gear.
Trying a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of different stuff, right? So there are details that we don't know because, again, a lot of people associated with this simply don't really talk about it. And
Yeah.
we don't have a lot of photos and things to go on. It is pretty tough to find data on it. But, so there's a couple things that are off, but what we do know is that Gary chopped his Car 15 barrel down to a 12.5.
Yeah.
Reason being?
From my understanding is he was being a sniper doing Overwatch in and out of helos a lot, and it was just easier, more maneuverable to chop it down a little bit inside of that helo.
Yeah.
And then, you know, some people are going to talk about, well, then why did he, you know, sniper, why would he go with a red dot? Like, magnified optic inside of that helo is a nightmare.
Yeah, eye relief, bouncing around, like it's kind of a no-go, you know?
So from my understanding, long story short, it's to work in and around helicopters.
Yeah, like it was a pretty dedicated gun for the job that he was doing, and especially the job he was doing in that particular mission. You know, total side note, but I mean, it's really fascinating running a gun from 1993 in essence. I understand it's a new gun, but a gun from 93 and looking at it and going, look, all the rage right now is risers.
Yeah.
Isn't it wild? You look at this and you're like, it's almost identical. I don't know the exact height. It's got to be very, very close to like a Unity mount or a 193 scaler works or something.
Dude, it's right on my jaw, right where it would be on like a 193 mount.
It's very heads-up display. I mean, it's just funny looking back and going, okay, isn't it interesting that the really sophisticated guys from that time were doing stuff that we're doing 30 years later, and we're branding it as heads-up posture and all this kind of stuff. You're like, dude, they're doing it in the 90s,
Yeah.
man. Like,
Which makes you think, you
wild.
know, I'm sure that gap is shortened.
Oh, yeah.
But like there's stuff going on now that
we
may
clue.
hit in 10 years,
Yeah,
right?
we have
So,
no clue, right? So to break down this particular gun, right? So it is a 12.5, and it will come exclusively as an SBR. So there's no point in calling Type A and saying like, I need it as a pistol. They are doing it as an SBR, and they're pretty clear about
As they
that.
should.
Yes. So we have that. It will come with a Car 15 stock, which would be, of course, period appropriate. For whatever the reason was, Ops Inc. goes under, right?
Yeah.
Business not run properly, whatever it is. Fortunately, Ron Allen takes over the manufacturing of this can, and good news, he's still in business today. To my understanding, if Ron sees this, I think he's a stately gentleman now, right? And like, hey, he's still making these things, but I think Ron is actually in his 70s and he's still making suppressors, which is just
so
super cool, right?
That is cool.
But you know, so this is really, I mean, to my understanding, identical to what Gary would have been running in that. It's a totally unique design compared to what most of us are used to running.
Yeah.
So it's an over-the-barrel suppressor. If you were to look inside of this suppressor, the barrels and where it's going to lock onto these threads on the muzzle device are going to be roughly here. So all of this on the suppressor is really just over the barrel, right?
Just
so
put it next to it for reference.
yeah, that's basically where it's going to go.
Yeah.
So while this looks massive and it is a very long can, really the baffles are like that. Now, one of the things is this requires a barrel with a special taper, right? A special barrel profile, right?
Yep.
In order for all this to sync up. Type A is actually making those barrels in-house, right? So this is something that they are actually making themselves. So it has a special taper, and then also the actual little sort of, you know, locking, or well, I guess this is kind of the locking device, but this little like kind of nut here taper device they're also making. This can obviously runs on its own. It sounds decent. Like it's not the best sounding suppressor, not bad, not the best. It's got a little bit of a crack. But keeping in mind, it's 30 years old.
Yeah.
You know, like, look, it's 30 years old.
Yeah.
And the whatever can that we're shooting right now, you're like, yeah, that was come up with 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So it's just, you know, it's just a bit more advanced.
Just technology.
But it sounds decent. The blowback, especially for me as a lefty, for those of you that don't know.
Not bad.
Blowback is not bad. It's actually a pretty clean can to run. The gun has actually not been getting super gunked up with that can either, just kind of as a note on that. Suppressor, very, very interesting. Some of the other things on this. A1, A2 uppers, there's probably gonna be a variety of those in terms of how this gun comes. So before everyone starts asking that or what was clone correct, cool, I'm gonna remove myself from that clone conversation there.
Yep.
It will even come with the optic mount and the optic, which is pretty cool. So essentially what you're seeing is what you would get minus the sling, minus the suppressor, obviously, and hey, look, and the light. And look, my other caveat would be, look, if you have one of these, you have to have the suppressor.
That's a non-start. Like, you get this gun, you get this suppressor.
Yeah.
Just make it known to yourself, your wife, your budget, whoever. These two go together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but I mean, look, it's very cool. Like, you have to keep in mind, it's an older design, right, that's been restored. It's a resto mod, right? That is the point.
Yeah.
So,
I think one of the coolest things I've taken away from this is how simple that gun is.
yeah,
Like, you know, we have optics, sure, right? We have risers, sure, but that's all kind of part of this, the riser built into the upper, right? We have Gucci cool handguards, standard handguard from back then. And the gun, I mean, runs. And like runs well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Very nice to shoot, a little snappy. But that's just, hey, look, if you want a retro gun, you're gonna get some retro, you know, little snap. Not heavy, but like, you know, it's just got a little bit of a bite to it. So anyway, let's leave you with some final thoughts.
The truth is, however, I don't care much about all the technical specifications. And I know that'll make some of you, especially the cloners, very mad. But I see this gun as a lot more than a series of technical specifications. You see, this is a gun that has a story to tell. The Gordon is a piece of American history. Are there more modern and refined rifles out there? Of course. But this one owns a significant moment from the history books. A moment of selfless sacrifice for the benefit of the team. And that's something we can all learn from.